get to come often, but when I can, and their efforts to educate other kids from preventing their use and abuse. There's Aaron. How you doing, buddy? Give it to Sherrie.
Thanks, Mike. Okay.
After 30-some years, I know it can stay, you know. I know it's good for me.
No, Mike, you can stay up there.
No.
I'm going to go ahead and use the mic because it was a little difficult to hear Monique when she was up there. So, the first thing, Aaron, can you hand me that pen? The first thing that I always like to ask Aaron, and he'll be responding and contributing today fully, but because of the overdose, he has lost his voice the way you and I speak, but he can communicate today using 1 for yes and 2 for no, and then yelling at us with all those sounds you already heard. So, Aaron, do you want to be here today to share your story? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Yes. Because we asked Aaron, and it's Aaron's story, and it's Aaron's journey, so it's up to him if he wants to come or not. So I said there's a bunch of ladies, and that was it. He didn't hear anything else after that. And some things don't change no matter how long you're in a coma. So Aaron overdosed on OxyContin and a variety of other prescription meds. And he was in a coma for 3.5 weeks. And we were planning his funeral, and he started opening his eyes. And not the big, beautiful eyes that I had grown accustomed to see for 23 years, but dingy yellow whites, and the rest of his pupil rolled back into his head. But it was the first sign that we really had that, well, actually for myself, a second sign, but that we had that he was fighting to stay alive. And Aaron was, can I share with them, Aaron, where you were when you overdosed? Yes. Aaron had spent the night with friends, and he had known the family and friends, as I did and his father did, through sports since he was probably 7 years old, and he was 23 when he overdosed. And so he had spent the night there after going to a party with their son, who was the same age as Aaron, one of his best friends. And my husband was calling Aaron's cell phone, asking to meet up for breakfast on Sunday. As the kids were getting older and married and on with their life, we tried to connect on Sundays for breakfast. And there was no response from Aaron's cell phone, and he continued to keep calling, and we ordered our breakfast. And the ringing of the cell phone alerted the mom of Aaron sleeping on the couch. And she went over to Aaron, and she told me in the waiting room at the emergency room that Aaron was blue and non-responsive. And she first then beat on his chest, and then she said she went to the freezer and took ice and poured it on him. And then thirdly, they used his cell phone, the father, mother, or son, to call the pharmacy in Mexico where they had purchased drugs. And then they called a friend who was an EMT, and the EMT said call 911. They still did not call 911. And at this point, there's no visible breath coming out of Aaron. So they drug Aaron to their car, threw him in the back seat, took him to the emergency room, and when the emergency physician in charge said, why is he like this? Did he have a seizure? Did he fall? They said, I'm sorry, we have no idea. And so they offered no assistance to the doctor that could help Aaron. And they called Mike's cell phone just about when our food was being delivered, and we saying that Aaron was not breathing and he was in the emergency room. And so when we got there, we, of course, asked, where's our son, where's our son? And we went into the emergency room, and the doctor asked us, why, what do you think is happening? Is he having health issues? We said, drugs, it's drugs, it's drugs. And then he gave him something, I have no idea, but when we arrived there, Aaron had only his jeans on, and they were halfway down his hips. He was all scraped up all over his body because he was big and strong. The father and son couldn't lift him, so they drug him, so he's all scraped up. And he was on this metal table, and he looked very cold and lifeless. So we were told, I'm sorry, you're going to lose your son today. And we just kind of prayed, and the family that was with us, were around Aaron, and then our religious council came, and then we were trying to get the rest of the family to the hospital. In between that time, the efforts of the doctor brought breath and life back into Aaron. They were not sure about his mental capacity or damage to his organs at that point. And so that's when they began doing tests and things of that nature. So Aaron actually survived that, as you can tell. And so that began our journey to the ER for, to ICU, basically, for 3.5 months. And it was touch and go. Aaron had more go than touch. He had 2 heart attacks in ICU. His heart would either beat really fast or it would just go down really low, as well as his temperature. He couldn't maintain body temperature, so he was either very, very cold, where they had to put heating on him, or he was very, very hot, and they had to put ice blankets and fan. You can see the fans in the pictures. We couldn't get enough fans when his temperature was going so high. So around the 10th or 11th day, they thought that we should withdraw care from Aaron, that he had, no brain activity, and he had a lot of heart attacks at that point too, and I wasn't ready to do that. Mike, he was struggling in the waiting room as well, health-wise. He had a few little incidents, and it was, very strenuous on the whole family. His little nephew that you saw in the pictures, Jacob, is that right, Aaron? Jacob, one for yes, 2 for no, your nephew. Yes. The day before, I was babysitting the grandkids, and Aaron was there because he was trying to stay away from people that he knew, and he was helping me with the kids. So he was playing football with little Jacob, and Jacob had a cold. And Aaron, at one point during the day, told Jacob, hey, little buddy, don't be wiping that stuff on the football, and don't be getting too close to me, or you're going to get me sick. And they laughed, and Aaron had said it a couple of times. Jacob, after Aaron had been in ICU for a couple of days, was having trouble sleeping. He, was very well potty trained, very good. He was having accidents. He wouldn't eat. And Jacob thought that he got his uncle, sick in ICU. And so after me talking with him, that's what he had said. So the head ICU nurse came out and talked to Jacob and, said that, it's not a cold, it's not a flu, it's not anything. And he was like probably a little over 2 at that time, 2 or 3. I think it was 3, yeah. And And I know little guys, for all you doctors' wives and doctors, are not supposed to be back in ICU for a lot of good reasons. But he was still having a lot of difficulty, so I broke the code to the ICU door within 3 hours when I was there. So, you know, when your kid's on the other side, it's kind of photographic memory. So against all the rules, I took Jacob back and let him see his uncle, even at that young age, that he could see the tubes and the wires and everything else, that this wasn't a cold. This isn't something that you had. This is something different. And at that point, Jacob understood, and he went back to being the 3-year-old that he should be. But Aaron, when you abuse prescription drugs or any drugs, is it only about you? One for yes, two for no? No. It isn't. It's about everyone that loves the addict. It's about the family. And that being said, also when you want to recover as an addict, you cannot just treat the addict. You have to treat the family. And I think the one thing that's come out of this prescription drug epidemic or health crisis in our country is the attention that it has brought to addiction. And it has a lot of that to the forefront. And I think understanding it a little bit better than how I personally used to think about addiction. Aaron, did you ever think when you were taking prescription pills that they could harm you? One for yes, two for no? No. And did you think when you were using them that if you wanted to stop using them, you could whenever you wanted? When you were first using, did you think you could stop when you wanted to stop taking them? Yes. And did there come a time that you wanted to stop? Yes. And Aaron actually came to myself and his father and said that he had a problem with drugs and he wanted to get help. And looking back, it sounds kind of silly to say, but we never even really asked him what drugs. We just assumed illicit drugs. We assumed like cocaine or whatever, you know, college, Chico, Mexico, you know, those kind of things. But nonetheless, and his father was very, very active in this part of Aaron's journey, attending with him to outpatient. He went to detox, he went to outpatient, he went to psychiatrists, he went to counselors, he went to every aspect, everything that we knew at the time to do or had knowledge of, we did and Aaron wanted to do. And he also signed for his father and I to be on all the doctor's records and to have all the information, which we really didn't think was necessary for us to know because he was trying to get help. So that went on for a period of probably a good 6-7 months, and he would do good and then do bad and then up and down. It was a little roller coaster. Would you agree, Aaron? One for yes, two for no? Yes. And his pattern was that he would get healthy, and he saw himself healthy, and his brain told him that he could be healthy and he could manage that on his own. And we believed by looking at him that he was doing well and that he could do that on his own. And so it was up and down a couple of times that year, and then he finally came to us and said, this isn't working, I need residential treatment, I need to go to a residential treatment facility. And so his father took him up to one actually at South Coast, it's called up here in Laguna Niguel, and he was there for 7 months and he did fabulous and he was doing very well. And he thought that he could come home and go back to school and kind of take up life and achieve his goals. And so did we, because we didn't understand the powerfulness and the powerful change that the opiates had created in his brain, the powerful dependency that it had created, that he would have to struggle with the rest of his life. We didn't know that. Prior to that, and prior to understanding addiction, the closest thing that I came, well, I was born into addiction. My father was an addict. Thank goodness he was hardly ever around, just enough to, when he was, beat my mom or try to kill us or hurt us or, some crazy stuff like that. And then both my sister and my brother were addicts. And so my take on addiction and drugs was that had no place in my life or my family's life, and that was just it, plain and simple. And they were, they made a choice, and they were stupid, and they're idiots, and I'm good, and that they were just messed up. So I really didn't have a real concept, an educated concept about addiction. I think we rarely do. I think society does not really grasp the concept of what addiction is. But I do now. And Aaron, when you started using drugs, was it your choice? One for yes, two for no. Yes. And then you thought you could control your use? Yes. And then at some point, that choice and the drugs, did they start using you? One for yes, two for no, yes. And so, yes, it's a choice to abuse these drugs, prescription drugs, or a choice to use illegal drugs or alcohol or tobacco for that fact, any substance that's addictive. But with that continued use, it becomes, at some point, and it's all different for all of us because we're very much the same and very much different at the same time. Aaron could maybe use for 3 months and become dependent. Someone else could use for 1 month or 1 pill or 3 pills. You don't know. And so I understand now that it's a choice that becomes a disease. And it's not if, it's when, but that when is different for all of us. When it becomes that dependency for you, your brain, and your body. And so Aaron very much wanted to not be dependent, and he struggled with that. And he ended up that night when he did overdose, he was approached a few times by some old friends that he had used with. Is that correct, Aaron? Yes. And they had approached him maybe 2 or 3 times, and on the 4th time he ended up going with them. And so, and that's kind of, what happened that night. And Aaron, the friends and family that called 911, are you angry? That did not call 911, are you angry at that one for yes, two for no? No. And Aaron, is it anyone else's fault but your own, the challenges and the lifestyle that you have today? One for yes, two for no? No. Aaron knows and takes responsibility of the choices that he made that led him to where he is. Sorry. And I think that, we all have to be responsible for our choices. And as Ronit was saying, as a doctor, you have choices. And can you live with the choices that you make? And to take time to listen to your patient, listen to your child. I mean, there's a lot of times, I think, looking back, that Aaron was trying to say, how difficult it was for him. And I I don't think that I really absorbed that. You know, I didn't understand the tremendous struggle that he was in. Not that he was going to listen to me anyway, because I doubt that was going to happen seriously. But I do think that if I was better educated about prescription drugs, but with Aaron, he overdosed in 2005. So that's a long time ago, 8 years. So, I mean, it really wasn't on the radar of law enforcement. I mean, they could have pills in their car, they could have them anywhere. They weren't looking to arrest people with prescription drugs in 2003, 2005. So I think, the education is really important for your grandchildren, your children, for all of us about the potential risks and dangers of abusing prescription drugs. And then the lethal combination of combining them together. And so I think that's why we go out and talk. And Aaron, usually we talk to, young adults and things, things like that. We do speak to, parents and other organizations. But I think for the most part that Aaron, were you not happy when you were using and abusing prescription drugs? One for yes, two for no. Were you sad and depressed? One for yes, two for no. Can you close your hand? Were you sad and depressed when you were using? Yes. What happened with Aaron was like what Ronit said. You just needed more and more and more, and he just became more depressed and more depressed and more depressed. And we were always very vigilant and trying to stay in touch with Aaron every day. And we hadn't heard from him for like a whole day, and Mike went looking for him, and he was up on the cliffs in La Jolla, and he really just wanted to die because he was struggling so much. And he had been to the outpatient programs at that time, and they, I guess, obviously weren't helping him. And so it does become the struggle. And Aaron lived with that struggle. And I can sit here and tell you all of these things, but what I'd like to do, if Aaron says it's okay, can I read everyone some things from your journal? And these are they're on a board, so I don't lose them or forget them. So some of these things were in Aaron's rehab journals. And it's in his own words and what he was struggling with. Alcohol and drugs first began at parties, after football games, and special events. All my behavior was out of control, self-inflicted injuries, accidents, and emotional distress. My life was not a life, but a roller coaster of pain, shame, sadness, and depression. Thanks. I am sick. I still can't stop taking pills even after detox. I am in a black hole filled with pain, self-loathing, despair, and darkness. I am not me. I am heavily using and losing myself. I am ashamed of the life I am leading. I am beaten and broken by my addiction. I've lost control again, drinking and eating pills, Oxy and Xanax. I'm in a mental fog, and I don't know what's going on. I just want to feel normal. And that's just a few of the things Aaron was struggling with during his addiction. But I'm very proud of Aaron, and that he's very courageous to go out and talk to people about a choice that, Aaron, if you could go back, would you use drugs, alcohol, or prescription pills? One for yes, two for no. No. That he would change, and that he would hope to inspire other young adults to not make that choice. We know that we can't make the choice for young adults or even people that are adults that, to not use prescription drugs or abuse them. But what we provide and try to provide now is the education about the consequences, the very real consequences that were not available to us, that we did not understand. So Aaron made a choice, but he made an uneducated choice. He really thought that they were safe from a doctor, from a pharmacy, and nothing bad could happen to him. The perception of harm in this country by a lot of people of prescription drugs is none. And so when we go out, we do provide the reality of using prescription drugs. And if they make that choice after we've left the room, well, that's on them. They can't blame anybody else, because we have, given them the real and unfortunate, tragic consequence that can happen. And we have several other videos of other young adults that are in similar or worse states like Aaron because of Oxycontin and opiates, and combining of several of them. So there's, this is not just one incident. There's probably, I have like 6 or 7 videos of other young adults who are in these conditions. And unfortunately, it's because they go to sleep, and like Renee said, they combine them, and they have an anoxic brain injury. The oxygen, Aaron suffered a heart attack and 2 strokes, front and back, both sides of his brain. And which left him, and we're very grateful, and we're very blessed. I'd like to have one last thing before you guys want to maybe ask questions for Aaron. In closing, I know that not just one entity of this epidemic can solve it, the health crisis, and save lives, but working together we all can. Just like Renee said, if we each take a part and do our part in education for our areas and in our expertise or our fields or in our communities, then we can curb the epidemic, and we can save lives, and we can educate people at the same time. This is a writing that I wrote in Washington, and I was asked to share it, so I'm going to share it with you. I close my eyes, it's 2005, and I hear the doctors say, "I'm sorry for your loss. You're going to lose your son today." A night of friends, oxy and pills left Aaron lifeless, cold and still. He lay in a coma 3.5 weeks, alone, unresponsive, in unreachable sleep. His family gathered, grieved and cried. None understood, and all wondered why. On day 26, Aaron's destiny changed. He would survive, but not unscathed. Aaron's a quadriplegic who cannot speak. His wheelchair will be his permanent seat. We care for him daily, yet feel very blessed 10,947 others that year laid loved ones to rest. In 2008, another 14,000 plus. When will this end? When is enough enough? Again in 2010, overdose deaths pick up steam. Another 16,651 will never achieve their dreams. I speak to our leaders whom we've entrusted our care, help end this epidemic, the death and despair. We're the first to aid others in the lands across the sea, ending their anguish, suffering, disease. Let's act here at home with that same conviction, end loss of life from the disease of addiction. Let's rise above ego, power, and greed, make policy changes, and help those in need. It's too late for Aaron and far too many others who've lost mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers. I ask you to act quickly, heal our country, hear our pleas. Please do what is needed. God bless and Godspeed. Thank you very much.